This continues the reading of Daemonheim, a RuneScape novel written by Emdac, also known as Emdac in the RuneScape game. I donned the helm of my allies from Netisnot. Then I covered my torso and legs with clothes to keep warm and equipped Carol's chest and leg armor that I obtained from my venture into the Barrows dungeons 2 years ago. Leather boots, a draconic crossbow and a draconic scimitar I took with myself, and 100 emerald bolts. Wearing the backpack, I took only 2/3 of what I bought in the morning. Noon was up high and I set out. As the sparrows dispersed into the heaven, my journey began. While traveling, I sensed Aaron's urgency. His letter envelope shook slightly in my pocket, and I tapped it with a telekinetic grab spell to let him know I will be there soon. The way to Varrock would take me another 3 days, but I would make it quicker if I surged in safety, without bothering any of the peaceful villagers with potential thoughts of highway robbery. I did not have time to be inspected by the guards for seemingly violently surging through folks' alleys and near their fields. As I ventured beyond the village and found a path through the wood thickets, I began to surge. With every flash, squirrels, rabbits, and birds would flee around, afraid of the phantom they saw. To stumble was impossible. Measurement was the quality of a good mage, and knowing Aaron certainly would not make weakness my property. The thickets cleared and I stopped. Surging out of the forest, I saw a flock of birds form like a perfect cloud above me and fly high behind a tower that stood yon above a sheep herd. I could see 2 men venturing through the fields, equipped with helmets and two-handers. They would often stand and beckon with their hands at one another. Then, as I became clear to their horizon, they waved at me. Seeming friendly, I saw them as everything except that. The ways of highway robbers was familiar to me. They are the friendliest in outset, and the most fierce in trickery and usurpation. Thoughts crumbled at the ridges of my mind, but every deep fall into the abyss seemed like a firm idea. If I turn, then I must turn completely and get out of their sight. And if I keep going forwards, I must either meet them calm or unsheathing my sword. The air brushed against my armor, and I could feel the rims of the Netisnot helm squeeze my nose in. The second option out of the 3 seemed most reasonable. Walking on, a memory reconciled me when I was north of Falador venturing for information on the Oracle of the White Wolf Mountain with Sir Amic Vars. We passed by a group of men that were partially armed. Highwaymen, but never daring to attack a white knight. Knowing the consequences of Sir Dominus' insight, they feared they could never hide from the law. But then, my mind whirled again back to reality. I had no signs of Sir Domin on me. I could not face them with the power of a sacred law. All I could do was walk past, prepare for the worst and fight if necessary. The wind blew and the 2 men approached. The grass fields about us ringed with the sounds of a dreadful calm, their voices becoming audible, in dark blue-draped hood cloaks and brownish attire with their knees open and their feet firmed into metal boots. Visibly, one of them wore an amulet of accuracy, yet bore no signs of a bow on him. A knife ranger, I thought, hiding something in his pockets. "Hello, sirrah!" shouted the warrior-like rogue. I did not respond. "We come in peace," said the ranger-like fellow as they began to appear nigh to me. I did not respond. A gulp in my throat made my blood circulate, and I could sense the beating of my heart. And as I calmed down, I still continued to reject speech with them. Now, we won't be moving anywhere further than this without a friendly chat, shall we?" said the warrior as he stood ahead in the path with his companion unveiling knives in both his hands. "We just want to talk. A taxation," he continued. "For his honor the perennial rogue," the ranger added. I stood firm, and I did not respond. A piercing sound flew from my right side, and a wave of purple light took hold of my vision. "Oh, Zevahain, Ghan is Defah! Light of all, guard my force!" The prayer I uttered as loudly as possible deflected the magic attack. I casted a spell combined with alchemic energy, and the foe became visible to me, their mage hiding in a bush. The ranger threw his knives and the warrior rushed at me. With swift moves, I lifted an earth wave from my left side and pushed back the knives and the warrior rogue to the ground. As my stance was facing the mage, I surged. The warrior lost his balance and his blades fell from his hands. Pulsating in the air and upon the ground below me, I ended at a boulder. launching myself after the surge and jumping to the left of the mage. He threw himself trying to dodge out, but fell directly into the target of my flow. My blade pierced his neck, and I left him bleeding in a moment. "Ruska! No!" The ranger roared in rage and flung more mithril knives at me. I casted an earth wave again and launched him to the ground. The warrior recollected himself and flew right into me. As my attunement to anima weakened, I was forced to face him without the usage of magic. He flew to my left side and lunged with a slashing attack. I parried and jumped once back, crouched, and as he launched himself at me to try and cut from above, I unveiled my crossbow from beneath and shot him dead in the head. His metal rapier I parried as it flew onto me in the air. The ranger was coughing from the dust I covered him in, and as he struggled to turn and see me, my sword and his friend's rapier flew direct at him, cutting into his heart and abdomen. They growled both, bleeding both to death, both dying in the field between Lam and Varrock. I gasped for air, and my heart beat as fast as a scarab's numerous feet moving in a desert pyramid's floor. I saw the warrior's eyes roll as he lifted his hands above himself. I would assume trying to escape death the herald. A brief vision of darkness covered my sight, and I stood down to rest, my hands dirtied in dust. I looked to the mage to see if he still moved, but my intuition was reaffirmed. All three of them fell, and I remained. To see the ranger bleed in the distance smothered in dirt seemed as a work of art, not something to be proud of, but to meet injustice with recompense was of my craft, and to fight off those who abused the weak was my delight. Yet I had to douse the flame of vengeance, and I prayed. I kneeled to the grass, uttering, "O most prime source, light beyond the darknesses of the old world, grant them your grace and forgive them for their strikes. Perhaps in a better world, they will have met me as friends and not enemies." I stood up, wiping off the dirt from my impact with the ground. The mage was the first I had to investigate. He wore darkish boots of a linen craft. Mystic. He was a slayer, an amateur looking to become a professional. I took his amulet of power, a ruby ring in the satchel where he stored herbs. Then next came the warrior. His eyes rolled upwards. I couldn't stand the look of it. I put down his eyelids to cover the deathly pang's trace and noticed he wore an amulet of glory. Crafted from a pure gemstone it was. With Aaron's magic, I could probably revive its strength to grant me a teleportation. I took whatever else I could from them. A small satchel, a raw lobster, 4 potions and a Cerdominus brew. I returned to the mage. As I saw something hidden in the grass next to his foot, I picked it up and noticed golden arches revolving around a pivoting point. It was an astrolabe, seemingly gold, but I could feel the material was different. Its main arching feature had the stamp of a bird on it, a Caridian phoenix, a symbol of the royal guard. The bodies, however, I do not know what else I can do with them. There is a board nearby. I will use that and write down what had occurred. Yes, it was much better than burying them deep inside the earth, only for future accounts to accuse me of murder. Transparency was the key to success. This is how my father taught me our way. I took the board, placed it onto the ground and seared in with a spell. 3 brigands attacked me. I defended myself. Emdac, friend of the White Knights, resident of Lumbridge. I jabbed it into the ground and made it visible for any passers-by on the road. No time was to be wasted. I slightly buried them in the earth and left for the main roads. This abandoned passage where I was ambushed would not be trekked by many for days. Onwards the road again became smothered in mud, and thicket passages only to clear up again after an hour. Then I took a path back to the main road and joined with other passengers. I saw traders, a train of Cerdominus priests, travelers of numerous faces. As I passed through a village called Aleia, young farmers were gathering to celebrate and feast together. And as the sundown struck its deteriorating flash in the horizon, children's kites flew into the air, welcoming me to a familiar neighborhood at the crossing point to Varrock's domains. At Renner's Point, cottages were open to stay for a night for a fee of 150 coins. The point was a small rural location of Aleia, the very border of the domains of Lumbridge. There was a general store nearby, a tailor's shop, set in one building in the cottages. East from the tailor's house, the road led to Al-Kharid, and northwest the road led onwards to Varrock. 2 days away with the potions I had on me. The township was silent, and the sound of someone rocking in a chair amidst the front of the main cottage house creaked. There sat an older lady that looked at me, half hidden below her cap. "Good evening, madame. I seek means to arrest at night." "150," she said, with a crooked voice, rocking in her chair and playing with water, fire, air, and chaos runes in her hands. The keys to the room stood just above her in front of the window. She began to climb out of the chair. I offered to pick up the key myself. "I can get it, just tell me which." "Do not touch anything," she cut me off, and the reaction most devout to her job was produced. "This is the only set of keys I have for this place, and nobody may lay a finger on any one of them until I myself with my hand permit so, unless you wish to meet chaos in a fiery blaze, young man." The tone of her voice shifted. "I advise you to step back." Pointing at me with her 2 old fingers, grasping to the fire and chaos runes, I realized she was not only bothered but prompted to tyranny as well. Her gown was dark, but I saw no traces of Zamarakian loyalty on her, which gave me some relief that I wouldn't have to meet a sudden demise. She snatched the key off from the sill and passed it to me. "Here," she said, closing the key into my hands, with her right hand over the other. "Hold onto it like it's your mother's final gift." "I will, and I leave in the morning, after dawn. The room will be clean." She looked at me, silent, staring as I spoke and withdrawing as speech met its end. With a hunched back she walked off, and the last rays of dusk threw their blades on the front porch. In the distance I saw the potato farms and the ending gate of Mistalin embrace the setting sun, and I withdrew inside of the cottage room, laying down my belongings. Before heading to sleep, a meditative need rose in my heart, and I sat still for half an hour, after having set everything in its place. Silence took over my thoughts, and I slept. The first dream. A piercing sound, the clinking of frozen ice and a screech followed by the gaping expression on its face. I froze before it. The chamber in which I found myself had but 8 torches surrounding the room within the wool hollows. Sounds of stomping metal howled through the back of my mind. I screamed in agony, and the frozen demonic figure crouched, forming a shield of ice around itself. From above, beneath the canopy, I saw dead spiders and dead rats, once frozen in their form, now fall like pieces and fragments. And as I ran, they followed, right behind me. A trail of ice was formed from their descending remains. The ice shield melted away as the ice demon became enraged. He stood up and pointed at me and hurtled himself. I swiftly dodged to my right and saw the entire world become frozen. Then, time stopped. I was raised to a plane where everything was white and I could see a distant orb pulsate before me, stabilizing me, eternalizing me, never letting me go. The light expanded and tore my consciousness apart. The journey to Varrock, day 2. I awoke, my head frozen, gasping for air. It was late dawn, and the white orb I saw in my dream turned into the small street orb light in the distance that pierced through the open window into my eyes. Regaining some sobriety, I moved slightly and found peace descend again into my mind. 4 buckets were available in the bathroom, a small metal tub and a sink to wash myself, but no mirror. I went outside, unarmed, carrying 2 buckets, and I saw none but birds on the horizon and heard none but their chirping in the trees. A pump was available in the village, and I filled the buckets with its water supply. Repeating this once more, I made preparations for a morning shower, and again secured the door from any unexpected intruders as I re-entered my room. An old soap was available, but I feared using it, so I washed myself entirely with water. Then I changed my upper garments for new ones, now brownish with a buckled belt about my chest, along with pants that clumped up around their knee levels. I packed up my old clothes and placed them at the bottom of my backpack and rearmed myself, from helmet of Netisnot to Carol's attire to my draconic crossbow and scimitar as well as leather boots. The morning shone brightly and the sun was yon half the length of a spear above the mountain. I mentioned the name of the prime source and praised its other names. The light imperial, truth beyond all. Then with this blessing I headed out, packed up to the gut. I headed west for Varrock, and on my way there waited the old lady, owner of the cottages. She waddled slowly towards me on her stick. With her face lifted high and her mouth slightly open, a wrinkle-faced lady of a compassionate yet tired gaze approached me again. And now I saw her speak in a clear and daily poise. "May your roads lead you to freedom and strength, traveler, and may paleness never meet skin in you again." Her comment disturbed me, but to keep silent seemed a wiser endeavor in this. "Thank you." And how meek was my response, seeking further silence and lowness on this path. Her words would in a younger age strike at my weakness of being pale. Despite of the Caridian half of my origin, it seemed to have been the case that the higher end of my elemental inheritance was via the father. My father was a true primordial of Rimington, and my mother a Bedouin. She had no power other than natural wisdom and mindfulness until they met. But nevertheless I cared, and couldn't forget the limp of the old lady that she had as I turned to see her retreat to Alea's cottages. There between the domains of Lumbridge and Varrock, where two worlds met. The path called onwards, and I set myself to endurance. Reaching thickets and off paths, I would surge in safety to make it earlier to Varrock. An old forest I passed filled with colorful leaves, and with the wind waving in the pathway it created a melody, whose spontaneity made this journey an autumn's voyage. Eventually parting from the woods, I made it to a rocky tract unveiling fields of wheat before me, and the distant stones of the dark mages that stood high upon the hill. Behind their stones, with paths flowing into the end of the horizon, there it stood. Varrock, a Varrocka by its original name. I saw it from this point with its yellowish flags and towering walls, broad expanses and firm standing. A city of resilience, a city of resistance and struggle, a city defended by Arav and Sir Dominus loyalty coupled with universal human effort. A symbol of the Fifth Age, our age of man. I continued down my path where new mounds and trees covered the site of a Varrocka, and opened up new pathways to villages of King Hrold's realms. And now I saw slowly the cycle of the flags shift from blue and white to yellow and grey. It became clear to anyone traveling at this point that the realm was reached, and that the city was not too far off either. My legs waned slowly, and I had a need for rest. I ended up being still near to the village of Zuvaya, at the turning point to Reladas and Oakbridge, two villages that opened the paths to Varrock, and the dark wizards occupying the altar where I battled with Aaron against a demon called Delrith, the same wretch once summoned by Agrith Nar in the 20th year of this age. The Zamarakian order retook control of the altar near the road leading to Varrock, and established a rune trading and magic trading colony for their followers there. Useful for Hrold to argue that he was a king of diverse factions, yet far enough for them to not be associated with the main residents of Varrock, who were adherents to the Sir Dominus Church. The path to my right extended to another tunnel path, about 100 steps long. Walking through, the darkness chilled my back slightly, but the light at the very end shined powerfully enough to leave me unbothered. I pushed through and joined the path that turned left, going now straight to a park whose middle road led further and onwards to the main eastern path to Varrock, and turned left to the windmills south of the bridge crossing. River Lum at these points was the most shallow, and anyone heading to Varrock had their last chance to turn for paths that led to Draenor and further to Asgarnia. I rested in the park. People emerged at different ends, taking seats and resting at benches. A local musician, presumably living from the refinement of tunes, played in the midst, and I found myself surrounded by a grove-like set of trees with the musician sitting in the rocky field of the park. With only a linen cloth covering his body and brown pants to warm his legs, he mused the air about him in song and melody. I tossed him 10 coins and saw an affirmative nod as he held on to the lute, producing sounds from the eastern isles. Some people gathered to listen, and I departed to rest in the small nest of trees. The truth of the matter was different, I recalled. Those dark wizards claimed rights to the altar as it belonged to the inheritor of truth, our teacher Guthix. Seeking to reduce Guthix's strength in the Anima Mundi's realm, they repeatedly casted spells in the altar's region, experimenting and hoping thus that one day they would crack open a pathway to wound or kill him. This was not a mere trading colony or a safe haven of Zamarakian ritual. In recent times, the doomsayer Varrock, he spoke of the edicts falling, but I did not pay heed to such nonsense. As long as the green-eyed lord remained hidden, none but the most curious of minds beyond an ordinary capacity could find him. He slept, and even in some of my dreams he would oft appear, but never in a true Naragian form, or any form at all, rather as a voice or a green power orb emerging from nature. The small square-shaped fortress of trees calmed me down, and I saw an impling fly to a nest in the magic tree. It hid with some of its friends, even though it looked at me with its peeking eyes for a few moments. I did not wish to disturb it, and my path forbade me to hunt them, as they were a useful creature to clear the treetops of germs. A squirrel approached me as I sat calm, and stood next to me. I began to meditate, and the short-lasted wind was raked from the ozone to make space for silence in the air. Again I reflected and saw the void clearly in my own head. Soon I finished, and my legs were rested, body yearning for movement, with the path calling again to move on.